my name is Tanya, and for those of you who did not hear, I'm Canadian, but I live in Brazil. I've been living in Brazil for the last, I think, 11 years. So I'll be talking more about a Brazilian perspective and what's going on here in Brazil. So what I'm going to talk about today is Dreamocracy, which is the fusion of dragon dreaming and Sociocracy 3.0. Okay, so how did that start? Well, what is Dreamocracy to start out with? It is, like I said, it's a fusion of Sociocracy 3.0 with dragon dreaming. But what is dragon dreaming? I've realized that most of you don't know what dragon dreaming is. And it's a methodology for co-creating projects and finding blockages in projects. And it's very based on win-win, and it's inspired in Aboriginal cultures, deep ecology, chaos theory, and world systems. And dragon dreaming came to Brazil in, I think, about 2011, and it just kind of exploded here. A lot of Brazilians really took to it because it's a really creative way of bringing people together and helping people to take action in projects that are for the great turning. So it's really based on how to co-create projects that will help this great turning come about, which is this movement from an industrial culture to one that is based on a culture that sustains and protects complex life on Earth. And so what happened? Well, in about 2013, my friend and I, Ruth, we were doing a lot of consulting here in Brazil using dragon dreaming, and we realized that something was missing in dragon dreaming. We realized that it was really good for co-creating projects, but it wasn't enough for organizations. So we started bringing people. We brought Gina Price, Diane Leaf Christian, James Priest, Lily David, and we just brought Jerry and Ted a little while ago, last month, to Brazil over the years to give courses in Sociocracy. And then a group of us created this organization called Bio Inspiral, and we're a collective of consultants that do training in Sociocracy and dragon dreaming and consulting. And we started to bring the two together because in Brazil, Sociocracy was considered something really rigid and really hard to adapt to. So we wanted to kind of tropicalize Sociocracy, and we brought dragon dreaming and Sociocracy together. And how does that look? Well, let me see. First, I think I should let you know a little bit more about dragon dreaming, because I realize that some people don't know about dragon dreaming. I'm not going to go over the principles of Sociocracy 3.0, but I will say, for maybe those people who are not really clear about what the difference is that Sociocracy 3.0 brings the driver, the aspect of the driver, which is this driver statement, which explains what is happening and what is necessary, as well as some agile practices. And dragon dreaming really is this creative way of creating projects, but really has this focus on these three principles: service to the earth, strengthening communities, and personal growth. And other than being a methodology for co-creating projects, let me see. I think someone. Are you guys hearing me all right? Because I can hear my is echoing.
Yeah. Hey.
Maybe it would be better if everyone was on mute right now. Having some difficulty with transmission. Okay, so let me see if everyone can mute their their microphones. Then okay, then we might find it a bit easier to hear. Okay, excellent. So other than being a methodology for co-creating projects, it is also a philosophy, which is called Love in Action, which is based on win-win, collective intelligence, deep listening, and connection. And so there's a magic that comes with dragon dreaming that we felt like that Sociocracy doesn't really portray, but we feel that is there. We feel that once you use Sociocracy, you feel connection and you feel deep listening, you practice these things. But it's hard to get to feel these things until you really, really practice Sociocracy. So sometimes people don't take the time to really get into Sociocracy because they don't feel that right from the beginning. And with dragon dreaming, you do, because the methodology really brings that about, because it's very creative the way that the methodology itself is very creative, and the way it is explained to people, it brings these concepts in a very beautiful way. So what we've realized is that there's some very important things, there's some meta patterns that exist in sociocracy and dragon dreaming that really bring them together and make them very compatible. And the first is that they're really the two are based on living systems. And in dragon dreaming, there's this focus on looking at the planet as something different, you know, moving away from seeing the planet as this lifeless machine and looking at changing your vision of that and seeing the earth as a complex organism with intelligence and soul. And we feel that sociocracy looks at organizations that way, and dragon dreaming looks at projects that way. Let me just, and how does dragon dreaming do that? Well, dragon dreaming has a dragon dreaming wheel. This is the dragon dreaming wheel, and there are 4 phases in the dragon dreaming wheel, which is the dream phase, the plan phase, the do phase, and the celebrate phase. And this wheel was created based on 4 types of personalities. So you have the individual, which is the introverted personality, and that is where the dream is born. So someone might have an idea or an intention or a dream, but for that individual to make that dream come true, they need people to make that dream come true. And in order for that to happen, they need people to also buy into that dream, so that dream becomes a dream of the group and not just an individual dream. So the dream is the stimulus, and that's within any living system. We have the stimulus, we have a threshold, we have an action, and we have feedback. So how does this happen in dragon dreaming? Well, there's the dream, and that dream has an intention. And if that intention is such that the individual thinks a lot about that dream, or that individual feels good when they think about that dream. Just one moment. There's a plane going by here. Okay. Or if the world is asking for that dream, then that's a sign that that stimulus is right. Because often in living systems, stimuluses are felt all the time, but they don't pass over the threshold. And so they don't ever happen. So what happens is when that stimulus does pass over the threshold and go into the planning phase, then it becomes a real possibility. And we start to look at all the ways that that can be developed. What are all the ways that we can consider making that dream or making that intention come true? And once we think about all those possibilities and we design our strategy, then an action occurs. And there's a response to that action. And that action can be more commitment or less commitment. And once that action is put into place, then we get feedback from that. And that feedback can be in the way of more positive or more negative satisfaction. And that gives us more feedback into our stimulus, if our stimulus was right or if it was wrong. And so that's how we use living systems within dragon dreaming. And we feel also that there's in S3, that's similarly felt when we use the tension. So in S3, there's this idea that we're all nerve endings of our projects, groups, and organizations. And we're like these, we're feeling, the entire time we're feeling things from our environment. And we might feel these things, we might think these things, we might feel these things, we might want these things. And these things that we're feeling, they're called tensions. And they're basically the gap between our current reality and our desired future. And if we're in an organization that's a hierarchical organization where there's command and control, we're also nerve endings that are feeling these things, but we don't usually have clear pathways to process these tensions. But when our organizations are developed in a living systems type of way, we do have these clear pathways, because in living systems, people have they're constantly connecting to these tensions, and they have these clear pathways, just like in any living system in nature. People are in any living system, the integrants of this living system are interacting with the whole in the entire time, and that's the same thing that happens within our organizations that are like living systems. So how does that happen? The tension is something that is very is considered that something to be very subjective. But I'm going to go back to this. But in S3, what happens is that subjective feeling, we have a way of making that into something that is objective by turning that into a driver, which is a statement that has one part of it that explains what our context is. And that context is based on facts and observations, plus what is necessary to attend to that context. And once we have that driver, our group can decide if that driver is relevant, if it is something that we want to process. And if it is something that's relevant and that we want to process, then we make an action. There might be a simple action that we can do to attend to that driver. We might make an agreement, a role, or a circle. So that's our action. And then upon doing that, we get some feedback. And all of our actions, agreements, roles, and circles are always evaluated. And we get our feedback. So that's how we see how Dragon Dreaming and Sociocracy 3.0 all each follow this idea of organizations and groups and projects as living systems. There's the stimulus that comes from the tension or comes from the dream. We observe it. We become conscious of that tension. Then we can make a driver statement out of that, or we can communicate our dream and make a dream circle, what we would do in Dragon Dreaming. And then we try and understand it deeper. We go into our planning stage. We try to decide, is it a real possibility in the context that we're looking at? Is it relevant? Yes, it is. And then we go on. How do we decide to do that? And then we can do that by creating a strategy or an action or a role or a circle. And then we get feedback from that. Okay. So this is how we see the meta pattern that both Dragon Dreaming and Sociocracy 3.0 have. Okay. So how do we bring our projects, how to take your projects and organizations safely out of control? We say that in Dragon Dreaming, because we're more focused on projects, we feel that Dragon Dreaming is really, really good for creating projects. And Sociocracy 3.0 has a more complex look and is better dealing with organizations. And how do we do that? Well, in organizations with 3.0, it's navigating via tensions. And how do we do that? We think, feel, and we will them, or we want them. And in Dragon Dreaming, it's through the dreams. It's connecting to our dreams. But in Dragon Dreaming, there's something very different, something very beautiful. We're not just connecting to our ideas that we have or the things that we want to bring about in life, but we're actually talking about our dreams, our night dreams as well, because our night dreams are connected to the right side of our brain, where we have this huge connection to creativity. The right side of our brain can hold 25,000 pieces of information at one time. And if we connect to those dreams at night, then we will be more in contact with the synchronicities of our daytime. So the idea is that in Dragon Dreaming, that this dream phase, this is really connected to us reconnecting with our dreams and curing ourselves through these dreams, because these dreams will help us to really find out what our purpose in life is and what the world is showing, what the world wants, what the world is speaking through us, and will help us to navigate through our projects. Okay, so I'm just wondering, I can't see anyone when I have people on the, when I have this fully open. I'm just wondering if you know what, I think I'll continue and then I'll get to the end and then we can open up for questions, okay? But if anyone really, really needs to ask a question, just open your mic and say, okay, can you hold on? So going to win-win, what is another meta pattern that we feel that really exists in Dragon Dreaming? It's the win-win idea. In Dragon Dreaming, there's this idea of really creating environments where we can connect with our aha moments. And the aha moments happen if we're looking at this little pizza here. If I look at this pizza, there's a part of this pizza which are the things that I know that I know. Okay, so I know what I know. And there's also a part, so I know some things about Sociocracy. I know some things about Dragon Dreaming. Okay. There are some things that I know that I don't know. So I really don't know much about engineering. So if I really want to, I'd have to ask somebody. If I have a particular question about engineering or something, or if I have a question about how something like something electronic that I don't know how to use, how it works, and I'd have to ask something. I know that I don't know that, but there are a whole bunch of things that I don't know that I don't know. And it's this area that we try to get to in Dragon Dreaming, because this is where we have our aha moments, our aha moments. And these aha moments are these moments where we open up a window to the universe and we receive a small piece of information and we go, wow, yeah, wow, okay, now I get it. And the next day when we look at that piece of information, we're like, oh, that's so obvious. But often our ahas are these very obvious moments. And the idea about getting to this part right here is this is where we're going to find the answers to the really complex questions that we have. This, I know, what I know, and what I know that I don't know. When we stay in this area, we're really limiting ourselves. And we often say that here, when we stay in this area, we're entering into an area where we're bargaining with others. Often when I'm in a conflict with someone and I'm staying in this area right here, what I know that I know, I'm just really trying to protect myself. I'm trying to defend what I know and hide what I don't know. And we really have limits to where we can get together. We have really limits to finding out how we can solve a problem. What is Dragon Dreaming really? When we say win-win in Dragon Dreaming, what does it mean? It means 100% of our dreams. So when we make a dream circle, which is in the first phase, we go in rounds, and we go in rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of people putting forth their dreams about a particular dream that they were invited to dream about. And in that process, some of the dreams might be contradictory. There might be a dream that I don't really agree with. But the point is, what we want to do is get to this point where we get to 100% win-win, so that I want to realize 100% of my dreams, and I also want to realize 100% of your dreams. And even if they're contradictory, what we try to do is we try to unite in the difference and try to find how we can make all the dreams come true. And we can only do that when we go to this area here. So there's really no bargaining. There's really, how can we get to the point where everyone is having 100% of their dreams come true? And that doesn't mean that the dream might change a little bit, because often we need to look deeper into the dream and look at what the need of that dream is, okay? And in Sociocracy, when we're integrating objections, we feel that that's the real moment of win-win. Often when in Brazil, what we're trying to do is, instead of calling the objection round the consent round a consent round, we call it an objection round, because often in Brazil people have a difficult time bringing objections. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage people to say what their objections are, and really help them to look at that as a present, as a piece of information that the group wasn't seeing, and that it is valuable for the group, and that if we don't have that information, then we're missing out on something. So there's also no bargaining. We really want to integrate objections that are valid. So in both of these cases, when we have a difference, when we're trying to get somewhere together, but we feel that there are differences in the group, how do we go about doing that? The meta pattern: understand what is the objection, understand what is the dream, explore it, and then decide what we're going to do and celebrate. So that is how we work on win-win. And then another thing that is really big is celebration. In Dragon Dreaming, it's very different to other types of planning methodologies, because it has the dream and the celebration. And most methodologies have the plan and do. Well, in Dragon Dreaming, celebration is really based on this moment of reflection and gratitude and recognition, and also wisdom. Going through our project, how do we grow as people? How do we grow as a team? How am I different because of going through this project? And in every phase, the dream, plan, do, celebrate phase, we have a type of celebration that we do. So in the dream, we review. In the plan, we reconsider. In the action phase, in the do phase, we reevaluate, and in the celebrate phase, we reflect. And the same thing happens in Sociocracy. We evaluate our tension. We evaluate our driver. We evaluate our action, agreement, role, and circle. And we have a lot of processes that are constantly evaluating and giving feedback. So these are this is also a very wonderful meta pattern that exists within the two methodologies. And let me just see. Okay, I'm almost there, Elle. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm almost finished, and then I'll open up for questions. And then what is just, I think most people don't know about dragon dreaming, but I guess what I'll just talk about really quickly, just go through this little list of what are kind of the different patterns that we're bringing about. So instead, what we're doing now in dragon dreaming and, well, in Dreamocracy, when we're doing an organizational driver, what we do is we do the 10-minute organizational driver, where we have, in silence, we give 10 minutes for people to write up the driver, and they can change it and they can switch things around, and after 10 minutes the driver is the driver. It's a way of creating connection and creativity so that we can get a driver out, and then we give consent to the driver. When we do our dream circle, we now start with a driver. We do the first steps of proposal forming, where we explore the driver, but we don't go into suggestions and ideas. We leave that for the dream circle. And we also, in some of the Indigenous communities that we work with, because some of the steps in Sociocracy and Dragon Dream are a little bit more complex, what we've started doing is doing a dream circle where everyone does rounds about what their dream is for that project, and we take those dreams and we put them straight into a backlog. And then what people do is, instead of selecting people put their name on that using markers. If they put their name in green, then they're responsible for that activity. If they put their name in red, then they want to learn how to do that activity. And if they put their name in black, then they're like a consultant. They can help people with that, but they're not responsible for it. And I think I'll just go maybe down to this last one, these last two, celebration, what's alive. We feel that in Sociocracy, there's not usually a lot of space for people, for taking care of relationships. So now that we've found that when we feel that there's a point where people can't move on because there's some conflict between people, we stop the process and we open up a space where there's a little bit of forum for people to talk about what's alive, and we deal with that so that we can help people deal with the emotional backlog. That's what we call it, and then we can get back to process. And we also use pinakari a lot, which is deep listening in one of the Aboriginal languages. It's the Manjili Jara. They use pinakari, they live in pinakari. It's living within deep silences. And so we use the pinakari as well when we're doing our processes, especially when we're integrating objections and we need to deeply listen more.